Welcome back, Canonites, for an exciting new Canon Fodder. This one is rather different from what we've typically expected of a Canon Fodder article, showing off some, presumably, final designs of characters and equipment from Halo Infinite, with very little direct lore. And honestly, I'm okay with that. It's a cool way to tide over fans for a bit without potentially spoiling important details, something we'll be touching on as we dive into these concepts. Now, let's start things off with the big one, Hyperius, depicted here in concept art by David Heidhoff. We first saw this brute chieftain in Mega Construx form almost a year ago, when images of the Defense Point Showdown set leaked. A lot of commotion arose in the wake of that leak, not unlike what's been happening in the hours since this image hit the internet. So let's cover this one detail at a time. Overall, Hyperius' armor looks amazing. The solid black with red lights, a perfect fit for the Banished, selling him as a significant threat in my book. Back when the set leaked, there was speculation that the bronze-colored pieces of Hyperius' thigh might be pieces from the Arbiter's armor, but specifically looking at the jawline of his helmet, I think it's safe to say that these are simply bone. I'm curious what creature or creatures these bones belong to, but I think they're just bone. We can also see that his knuckles are lined with deadly spikes. Hyperius is equipped with a unique gravity hammer, a change from his Mega Construx set form. I'll be curious to see which is more faithful to his final in-game incarnation. Will he have a unique and hopefully named gravity hammer or a recolor of the default design? If the former, I hope we can actually wield it at some point. That would be awesome. Around his neck is a rather morbid detail, what appears to be a necklace of Spartan fingers. Last year, before we even saw Hyperius, a set name was leaked with the description, Spartan Killer Hyperius. And Grimm reasserts that this chieftain is not a fan of Spartans in this article. I suppose he heard about Geklar's collection of dog tags and said,
"Hold my Tisha nail."
But that leads us perfectly to the key detail on Hyperius' design, the detail that really got the community talking last year and now, the helmet tied to his left shoulder. In the original Mega Construx set, it looked like an entire Hunter-class Mjolnir helmet that was tied to the armor, but in the concept art here it appears to only be the faceplate. Still, the implication is clear. Hyperius and Locke had a run-in at some point prior to Halo Infinite, and Locke did not win. Now, some caveats. First, the Hunter-class Mjolnir armor does exist as an option for Spartan 4s in general, so more than one suit exists. However, this is synonymous with Locke and the colors match up with Locke's particular suit, so it's his armor. Second, it appears that Hyperius also took Locke's chest plate. Thank you to Gerard Julien on Twitter, I hope I didn't horribly mispronounce that, for pointing out that detail. And third, most important of all, this does not mean that Locke is dead. When the Hyperius figure first leaked, Brian Gerard took to Twitter with the following statement. While we unfortunately had toy leaks earlier this year, products appearing now are all expected and part of the roadmap. We wouldn't intentionally spoil key game details, so don't read too much into anything. In other words, don't take the presence of Locke's helmet here to be anything definitive. And when I took to Twitter to remind people of this tweet, John Unishek basically reaffirmed this. Most likely, I think, we're looking at something not too dissimilar from the situation that arose when Halo Wars 2 was announced. For those who may not recall, the reveal teaser for Halo Wars 2 showed Douglas 042 shooting at a then unknown enemy before his hand falls limp. A lot of people thought that Douglas was going to die, and I think that's what may be happening here. More likely, I think we'll see one of two scenarios play out. Scenario 1. Locke lost to Hyperius but managed to escape, and either he'll simply be equipped with some Gen 3 Mjolnir and we'll see him down the line, or he'll be out of commission while he heals, after which he'll get the shiny new armor. And Scenario 2. Locke is defeated and captured by Hyperius and has to be rescued by the Master Chief. Ultimately though, I don't think 343 are planning to kill Locke, not right now. So speculate away, but speculate within reason. Don't set yourself up for disappointment regardless of your feelings about the character, that's all. But back to Hyperius, overall, he looks great, and I can't wait to see him and hear him in action, in-game. Next up, we have another brute of note, Tovarus, art by Noir and Zach Lee. I hope I didn't mispronounce that first name. The all-black armor makes me think that Tovarus might serve under Hyperius, but whatever the role he serves, I really love how clean the armor looks here. It's a stark contrast to a lot of the other Banished leaders, which, even if they are clean, all the armor is kind of haphazardly attached. Here, it looks like a clean single suit. I'd love if perhaps Tovarus was something of a cultured brute, with something of a pompous attitude and whatever may pass for a posh accent among brutes. I'm also in love with that red fur. I can't wait to see him in action and, again, hear him. And as I'm sure y'all have noticed, both Hyperius and Tovarus sport a Hand of Atriox icon on their armor, denoting them as members of this elite group. Next up we have a new brute turret, the Scrap Cannon, drawn here by Daniel Chavez. This design looks like it could easily fit in the world of Gears of War, and that's a perfect aesthetic for the Banished and brutes in general. Like other turrets, this will of course be detachable from its mount. I'll be curious to see how fast it fires and how much damage each round deals. And if the damn overheat mechanic is returning, how quickly that engages. I'm kind of imagining it as more of a slow firing turret, but we'll see. I can also kind of see it spewing out plumes of black exhaust based on the exhaust pipes along the top. That would be a really cool visual, though I'm not sure if that's good for gameplay. Either way. Closing out the concept art is a new vehicle, something that looks like a new take on the Transport Hog, at least in function, the Razorback, depicted here by Darren Bacon and Sparth. The name Razorback is a term used to refer to a feral pig, so an appropriate name for the vehicle. The chassis is very clearly inspired by the M12B Warthog, though with more armor and protection. It doesn't seem to have any weapons, so that likely means it can transport players, but I'll be curious to see how it stands out in-game. Is it just a mongoose with more seats, or something more? Hopefully there's something to it beyond just a new, albeit cool-looking vehicle. From there, the article goes on to give a number of shoutouts to communities that cover the Halo lore, yours truly among them, but also the likes of Installation00, a fantastic lore YouTuber I'm sure most of you have heard of, Brendan Lowry, a contributor for Halo Central, Podcast Evolved, The Luminary, a new lore-focused podcast, the Sacred Icon podcast, and the ever-wonderful Harspis. After that, we're reminded that the legendary Halo graphic novel will be receiving a reprint later this year, slated for October 12th as of this recording, but that's the third time that the release date has changed, so take that with a grain of salt. On the subject, though, I just talked about the history and impact of that graphic novel in a recent video, so feel free to check that out. Link at the top right and in the description. And in related news, Dark Horse is also producing a Halo comic collection that includes Halo Uprising, Halo Helljumper, and Halo Bloodline, the three other comics printed by Marvel back in the day and no longer available in print. That will also come out later this year, and I'm so excited that all these comics are finally going to be available again. But getting back to the article, it wraps up with a highlight of an upcoming Mega Construx set that we recently talked about, the Banished Brute Chopper. In my last video breaking down Inside Infinite, we talked about this set, particularly its inclusion of Spartan Fred 104. Notably, Grimm says that Fred's inclusion in this set was to celebrate Fred's presence in Halo Shadows of Reach, which is a subtle way of telling fans not to read too much into things included in Mega Construx. While I certainly talked about this set and how it could hint at Fred's in-game presence, I did also note that Mega should never be used as proof of anything. They have a lot of leeway in what they do with their sets. But anyway, that wraps up this Canon Fodder. I honestly loved it, even if it was sparse on direct information. Just seeing the concepts is appreciated, and as I said before, it lets fans speculate without potentially spoiling anything. I hope we can see more like these, especially if 343 is really intent on avoiding spoilers and giving too many direct details. Those are my thoughts though. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, this has been Halo Canon. First, I'd like to give a big thank you to our Harspis patron, Hope. Hope is the very first Harspis, so an extra special thank you on top of that. Next, I'd like to thank our theoretical patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or get a direct shout out, check out patreon.com/HaloCanon. You can simply support the channel or get additional benefits, such as behind the scenes material and shout outs like this. However, your continued viewership is more than enough for me. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. If you really enjoy this, turn on that notification bell so you can be among the first to see new videos when they release. But for all my fellow Canonites, keep on being awesome.